factories were still running, the system was still perfect, but the market had already moved. This is a story of Henry Ford, not the man who built an empire, but the leader who had to evolve to build it. Henry Ford built the most efficient production system the world had ever seen, and yet the very success of that system became his next constraint. 2 decades had passed since the first Ford factories begun producing cars. The assembly line had transformed manufacturing. Production was faster than anyone had imagined possible. The Model T dominated the global automobile market. By the early 1920s, millions of Americans were driving Ford motor vehicles. Ford had solved the production problem, but the next stage of the leadership evolution had arrived. Direction. At the architect stage, the leader no longer solves operational problems. The leader is responsible for overall strategic direction of the organization. And that is where Henry Ford hesitated. Competitors began evolving their strategies. General Motors introduced multiple models, different colors, different price points. Customers suddenly had choice. Ford refused to follow. He believed the Model T was still the perfect product. In fact, he famously once said, "The customer can have the car in any color they want, as long as the color is black." He believed the system he had built was perfect and did not need to change. And underneath that belief sat something deeper: fear. Because evolving the strategy meant admitting that the old strategy had limits, and admitting that the system that had built the empire might no longer define the future. The architect stage confronts every leader with the same psychological tension. If the organization evolves beyond the original strategy, what happens to the leader who built that original strategy? Ford delayed that evolution. Factories kept producing Model T vehicles, but the market was already moving. Dealers struggled to sell outdated designs. Sales declined. Competitors gained ground. The production system still worked perfectly, but the strategy guiding it had frozen in time. Henry Ford had evolved into the architect position, but he resisted evolving as the architect leader. Every stage solves a problem and reveals the next one. Ford built the most powerful production machine in the world, but the leadership evolution required something harder: strategic humility. Systems build scale, but strategy determines survival. Look carefully at your organization. Are you protecting the strategy that built your success, or are you evolving it to make sure you sustain that success? Because the system that made you powerful yesterday might quietly become the very thing that constrains you tomorrow. Remember, leadership evolves or it erodes.